Phillip Lee.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We're talking about energy price freeze today. That's the title of the debate, and there have been some interesting contributions already from colleagues on both sides of the House. I understand that the opposition's position on this is that the price freeze is in place, and then they're going to sort of think about what they're going to do next in the process. I've not heard about the sort of thing they would like to see in the future, and if the Chamber will allow me, I'd rather discuss the future rather than the present. As is often alluded to, there is a trilemma. I tend to disagree with this principle of a trilemma because it implies that they're all equal. As far as I'm concerned, the cost of energy is the most important key. Of course, security matters, and of course, decarbonising matters, but ultimately, energy is directly linked to GDP growth. We only have to look across the Atlantic to see evidence of that. And so I think we really must concentrate on cost as our primary target. I'll also want to mention that there is an argument here, which I will make, about the limits of markets, and that the privatisation of the CEGB in the 1980s was welcome, and it brought about an increase in efficiency in that area. But actually, I wonder whether we're all missing a trick here in realising that there comes a point when the market can deliver no further gain, and that we might want to consider a different model, particularly in the supply and distribution of electricity and gas. As I say, the primary concern must be the cost of energy. When I stood for the Energy Select Committee in 2010, more than one colleague came up to me somewhat surprised that I was going for such a lowly select committee. Why wasn't I going for something interesting like health and education? And I pointed out to each and every one of them that I thought energy was a key challenge for this government and indeed governments to come, alongside ageing, and that being a doctor I could talk all day about the ramifications of an ageing population, but I didn't know that much about energy and the energy market. Well, we're now approaching the 4th anniversary of us all joining these select committees, and I can tell you that in those 4 years, what I've concluded is that the complexities of the energy market in this country are quite remarkable, and that the market itself, although I think it was too far to go to say that it's a cartel, certainly the public view this sort of sense, this air of things acting in concert. And it is long overdue that we have an investigation into this market. But what I would sort of call attention to is that the motion mentions increasing competition. I wonder where this is going to take us, because if one makes an analysis of economic profits of these energy companies, actually one determines that they're making losses. Centrica made an economic loss of 345 million in 2013. And these are the companies that we're expecting to invest and find private investors into the market. I think we must reflect upon that, because in reality, even though it makes for easy headlines that these companies are making massive profits, they are not making massive profits. And if they are making profits, it tends to be in their generation arms, not in their retail arms. Of course I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. And on this point about increased competition in the market that we all would like to see, would he agree with me that the suggestion that government arbitrarily steps into a place and applies a blanket freeze is like to scare off investors and be a significant break on the very competition we want to see promoted?
Of course. I mean, forgive me, because many people have made the case already for how simplistic and foolish an energy price freeze is in reality. I didn't want to add, I thought it was you presumed that I would obviously agree with that. The honourable member smiled. My point is that we're about to do an investigation into the market, and actually I think maybe we need to sort of start thinking about how we might want to restructure our energy sector in the future in a more profound way. Before I come to that, the final thing I'll mention about security. Currently, about 70% of our oil and gas comes from Norway. That relationship is key. We've got a long-term contract with the Cacheries, or Centrica has, in excess of 4 billion. That obviously is important. But I, contrary to the previous speaker, I'm a strong supporter of the nuclear industry. Where I have some issues, and I'm in public realm about this, is that actually a strategy around the nuclear industry is required. I'm somewhat concerned that we've had to go abroad to get the technology. The reason we've had to go abroad is because the opposition sold all the technology in the preceding Parliament. The Westinghouse was sold, British Energy was sold. I think we could have made more hay about this, but never mind, we haven't. And in fact, I'm concerned about the fact that we're having to go abroad for technology that arguably isn't necessarily the cheapest. It hasn't been delivered on time, as the member for Newport West mentioned, anywhere on the face of the earth. And I have concerns about that, but we actually need a strategy as a country. I mean, why not have, for example, small reactors across the country built by Rolls-Royce? It's just a suggestion. Of course I will give one.
Centrica made a very serious, considered decision when they abandoned the 200 million they'd already invested in Hinkley Point, and it meant that the serious investors have deserted, and we have to rely on this cheap Chinese money that's there in abundance. I mean, what has Hinkley Point got to do with Britain?
Well, as my honourable friend mentions from a sedentary position, they didn't have control of the asset because Centrica were not allowed to buy British Energy in 2008, a decision made by the previous government, of which I guess he supported. My conclusions to all of this is that I think that there is time for the government to concentrate on one thing, not on a myriad of things. I think the Department, Energy and Climate Change Department, whenever it comes in front of the Select Committee, gives evidence of its lack of fitness for purpose in this area. And the Select Committee, I think, get deeply frustrated by their performances on many, many occasions. And I think we need to concentrate on one thing, which is energy efficiency. We had Fatih Birol in front of us the other day at the Select Committee, who edits the World Energy Outlook. The conclusion of that weighty tome of a book is that this country should concentrate on energy efficiency. It should stop subsidising energy generation. Let the market deal with that. We should concentrate on energy efficiency because the reality is that that's all we can do. Our declining stocks of gas may be mitigated somewhat by Shell, but let's not hold our breath, it's going to be a significant bounty. This country needs to be able to deliver economic growth in the future with less energy. California has done it. I don't see why we can't do it. But it requires a concentration purely on that. I think we need to get away from this rather daft level of subsidy for offshore wind, for example. Where I think there is some argument for state expenditure is in energy security baseload generation, which is where I think we maybe need to be more transparent about how we fund nuclear, and indeed, with reference to the previous contribution, marine energy projects such as the Severn. But my main point is that I do not think that the solution is yet further energy companies in the market. I believe in cooperatives in this. I think the retail and distribution networks should be owned by cooperatives. We only have to look at New York and Pennsylvania to see the benefits, the lower costs to the consumer, and also the ability to be able to take a longer-term view about investment in the infrastructure so that if there is poor weather, the distribution network doesn't go down. It may be counterintuitive for someone on this side to talk about cooperatives, and maybe that's politically attractive. But ultimately, there are limits to markets, and I think we're approaching that limit with regards to the energy sector. Thank you.
Yeah.